Hi, I'm Wyatt Cash with Scoop News Group, and we're excited to be here at CyberWeek. Today, we're talking to Norm Laudermilch, Chief Cyber Officer at LookingGlass. Norm, thank you so much for joining us.
Anytime, Wyatt. Thank you for having me.
So let me start by asking, you've held several Chief Security Officer roles in the past. What would you consider the most pressing challenge for someone in that role today?
Wyatt, I think without a doubt, it's gaining full visibility. It's having a comprehensive understanding of everything on your attack surface and how your suppliers fit into that risk picture too. As a former CISO, visibility was a key problem that we had to solve because visibility has to span physical and cloud environments and like I mentioned, third parties as well. It's a much bigger problem than people typically think about. And the supply chain is really important, that third party piece that I mentioned. Failure in this area has resulted in some of the most impactful breaches in our history. Target, Stuxnet, and I think most recently, the one that everybody still talks about is SolarWinds. And a CISO really needs to be fully informed about their attack surface and risk profile. And this was a picture that we recently completed at LookingGlass with our acquisition of AlphaWave, adding cloud visibility into that whole attack surface visualization. It's really important that you have all the pieces covered.
Well, I know you also have a lot of expertise around AI. And so I'm wondering, is there a specific emerging technology in AI that you believe will be a true game changer for government agencies? And how likely is that technology to be adopted in the next few years?
Well, the good news is these technologies are being adopted now, which is exciting. But you mentioned specific emerging technologies. In data science, there's all kinds of specific solutions that companies talk about: deep learning, decision trees, reinforcement learning, natural language processing. All of these are specific tools in the AI ML toolbox, and we're using all of those. But I think it's important to take a quick step backward and ask the question, what problems are we trying to solve with these technologies? Because that's where the real interesting things are right now. And here's what I think are going to be those true game changers you asked about. One is the summarization of large data sets. We are operating in the cyber world now in a complete data environment. The amounts of data that we have today to make decisions on are vastly greater than humans can comprehend. So summarization of large data sets is one. Two, making relationship connections that would be difficult for humans to do is the second of these game changers. Again, with the large data sets, it's impossible for humans to even comprehend the different types of data that may be connected in events that we're looking at these days as analysts. And three, anomaly detection across massive and diverse data sets. And LookingGlass has a unique perspective on this and on the whole internet, honestly. DNS activity, network flow data, vulnerability data, exploits that are happening, what's going on in the deep dark web today, what are people talking about on social media. We have visibility into all of those things, and doing anomaly detection across those is really the third game changer. And of course, the holy grail that we're driving to is event prediction, using our unique collection of data and our massive data platform, predicting what comes next. We're living in this security data world now, and we need to move to data driving algorithms and algorithms driving conclusions, and those conclusions driving actions automatically taken in cyberspace. We're kind of innovating at the intersection of man and machine now, using data science to solve these hard problems and letting the machines act as hundreds or even thousands of brilliant analysts on their own, doing these things that I mentioned: summarizing data, making connections, drawing conclusions, and turning the humans into strategists, not tacticians. This will allow us to operate at machine speed, because our adversaries are operating at machine speed and have been for some time. And this is a battle that we've typically been losing, and we're changing that now, and turning these humans really into moderators of what's going on, rather than actual tacticians.
Well, next, I'd like to ask a little about zero trust. How do you see the public sector adapting to really the increasing demands to implement a zero trust framework? And what should government agencies be asking of themselves and their partners now?
Yeah, great question. We're driving bold technology changes across both the government and private companies these days in the adoption of zero trust. And managing and delegating access to privileged accounts is fundamental to this zero trust model. The truth is, everybody's moving to this way of doing business. Everybody needs to get ready for zero trust. And here's, I think, what I think are the essential steps. One, assess your organization. This is something that a lot of government agencies and big companies probably haven't done in a long time. Assess your organization, map your attack surface, get a good understanding of it, and assess how adversaries' attack profiles map to the controls that you have in place. So that's number one. Number two, define your assets. With this massive data environment we're living in these days, it's so easy for this to just get out of control, and for companies and government agencies to lose track of where their critical assets are. So everybody needs to understand where those crown jewels are and understand the transaction flows around those assets. Who's accessing them? How are they accessing them? How often do they access them? And then we need to instrument, monitor, and measure. And this is, again, back where we can apply some data science to this. Look for anomalies. That person has never accessed that data before, or that group of individuals has never needed financial data after 8 p.m. before. This is an anomaly. So we can apply some data science to these problems too, but really it's assess the organization, define the assets, and then instrument, monitor, and measure.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Lastly, Norm, what's one recommendation you'd leave with agencies when it comes to responding to the recommendations and directives of the White House's executive order on cybersecurity?
Yeah, well, first, let's just admit that it's great that we have a White House's executive order on cybersecurity. It means we're taking it seriously, and that's amazing. I think first, cyber has to be accepted as a real intelligence discipline and resourced appropriately. And I mean, when I say resourced, I mean both with cyber intelligence experts that can interact with the machines like we've been talking about and take actions in cyberspace like we've been talking about, but also the money for their tools and their intelligence feeds. This is really no different than traditional intelligence forms that we've been working with for decades. So it's going to take more than the traditional things we've talked about: antivirus, firewall rules, intrusion detection and prevention. Cyber is much more than that now. It's an intelligence discipline, and we need to admit that and invest in it. Second, once we do that, the collaboration and communication between intelligence analysts all through the government is essential to quick reaction to cyber events and the ultimate success of us winning these battles in cyberspace. So agencies have to choose a platform that enables quick and easy sharing of threat intelligence. And this is exactly what the LookingGlass suite does. We have to be able to perform our intelligence operations and then share the results, our successes and our failures, with other agencies. And the third thing is, government agencies have varied missions, varied levels of resourcing, and different streams of intelligence. And only through this collaboration that I mentioned will we be able to bring the collective talent to bear and really fight these battles effectively and efficiently in cyberspace. The agencies have to use that platform that we talked about a second ago to collaborate. That's the only path to success.
Well, Norm Laudermilch, thank you so much for joining us today. And we also want to thank our audience for tuning in. And we hope you'll enjoy the rest of this week's programs on CyberWeek.